For 38 years, Duke and Iris Whitmore built their lives on Maple Lane, a small brick house that became a sanctuary for the children no one else wanted, Nora, Vincent, and Ruby. Every wall carried echoes of laughter, late-night lullabies, and whispered prayers. They had turned an ordinary house into something sacred, a place where broken souls learned to heal. But one morning the peace they had built began to crack. As soft sunlight filtered through the lace curtains Iris had sewn decades ago, she noticed a letter half hidden under a cookbook, their third and final eviction notice. Rent had nearly doubled overnight. Iris's heart sank. On their modest pension it was impossible, and before she could collect herself, the doorbell rang. Garrett Finch stood there, a smug man in a tailored suit, all false charm and cold efficiency. He spoke of progress, revitalization, and safety upgrades. Behind those words was greed. He wanted their land for luxury townhouses. Iris, trembling but proud, stood tall. "This house isn't just property," she told him. "It's our life." Finch smirked, leaving a business card and a warning. "You have 10 days." The rain started that afternoon, as if the sky itself knew what was coming. Duke, once an engineer with a sharp mind and steady hands, now sat in his wheelchair, weakened from a stroke, yet stubbornly clinging to his crossword puzzles. When Iris finally told him about the letter, his eyes darkened with disbelief. "They can't do this," he said. "There are laws." But the calls Iris had made to legal aid to tenant rights groups had led nowhere. Every answer was the same: months-long waiting lists, endless forms, no hope in time. Finch's harassment grew ruthless. Inspectors came unannounced, snapping photos, citing fake violations. The paint too faded, the railing too low, the ramp unsafe. Workers arrived at dawn, tearing apart their carpet, drilling, hammering, making sleep impossible. Duke's health began to crumble under the stress. Pneumonia took hold. Iris sat by his bedside at night, whispering the same prayers she had whispered when their children were small. Please, God, not him. When the final day came, Duke too sick to stand, Iris packed what she could: family photos, Duke's medications, her mother's china, and sold the rest for $200. As Finch's agent arrived with a clipboard and an awkward apology, Iris forced a smile. "We're leaving," she said, her dignity intact even as her world disintegrated. The rain followed them as Iris guided Duke's wheelchair down their dismantled ramp. The car, a rusted Honda with nearly 200,000 miles, held everything they had left. They tried motels, each one rejecting them without a credit card. By nightfall, they parked behind a grocery store, the rhythmic sound of rain mixing with Duke's labored breathing. "We'll be fine," Iris whispered, covering him with their only blanket. But fine never came. The car battery died. They drifted from one parking lot to another, invisible to the world. Duke grew weaker, his fever burning through the chill. Iris's shoes soaked through, her hands numb, but she refused to stop. Finally, she pushed his wheelchair 3 miles through relentless rain to a bus stop, her last hope for shelter. There they waited, 2 souls in the downpour, forgotten by everyone but each other. Hours passed. People walked by, some looking away, others recording them with their phones. And then just before midnight, a man named Dennis, a homeless stranger, stopped. "You got kids?" he asked. Iris nodded, tears spilling. "Then call 'em," he said softly. "Pride don't keep you warm." He left a crumpled $5 bill in her hand. She stared at it for a long time, then at her phone, but she couldn't press call. "Just one more night," she whispered. The same night, hundreds of miles away, their eldest daughter, Nora, landed in Chicago to surprise her father for his birthday. By coincidence or fate, Vincent and Ruby arrived on the same day, all planning surprise visits. When they reached Maple Lane, laughter filled the car until the headlights revealed the horror. No ramp, no curtains, no lights. A sold sign stood where the rosebush once bloomed, and a Finch Properties banner waved proudly in the rain. Panic cut through them. Vincent ran to the door, pounding on it, shouting their parents' names. The house was empty. Mrs. Cale, their old neighbor, opened her door with tears in her eyes. "They're gone," she whispered. "Evicted 3 days ago. He was so sick, she said they were going to Duke's brother in Cincinnati." "Dad doesn't have a brother," Nora gasped. Realization struck all three at once, the lie, the desperation. They scattered, calling hospitals, shelters, police stations, but there was no record, no trace. Hours later, Ruby remembered something her father once told her at a bus stop long ago. "If you ever feel lost, find a bus stop. It'll always lead you home." That memory saved them, us. Using Iris's old transit app, they traced her last search, emergency shelters near me. It was all they needed. The siblings drove through the storm, scanning every shelter along the route. Empty, empty, until Nora spotted it, a faint light flickering at a bus stop by Harmon Avenue. Her breath caught. "Stop the car!" Through the windshield, they saw a wheelchair, a blanket, and a woman slumped beside it. Ruby screamed, bolting into the rain. "Mom, Dad!" Iris's head lifted slowly, disbelief flooding her face as her children surrounded her. Duke was barely breathing, his skin ashen and cold. "He's burning up," Ruby sobbed. Vincent was already on the phone. "Yes, we need an ambulance now." Iris, shaking, clung to Nora. "You were all so happy," she whispered. "I couldn't ruin that." Nora's voice trembled. "We're your children, Mom. We're supposed to help." Sirens cut through the rain. Paramedics arrived, working fast. Duke's vitals were crashing, oxygen low, pulse fading. As they loaded him into the ambulance, Duke's eyes fluttered open. "You came," he rasped. "Of course we came, Dad," Vincent said. It was the first time in days that Duke managed a smile. That night, as the ambulance lights vanished into the storm, the family was whole again, but the fight for survival had only just begun. At St. Aldrich Hospital, the doctors fought to save Duke's life. Pneumonia had ravaged both lungs. Hypothermia and dehydration pushed him to the brink. Iris, exhausted and frostbitten, finally collapsed. As nurses worked around her, the children gathered to hear the truth from their mother's trembling lips. The rent hikes, the fake inspections, the harassment. Finch had planned it all, evicting elderly tenants to clear land for profit. Iris had tried to shield them, afraid to burden her children. Nora, normally composed, broke down. "You raised us to ask for help, Mom. Why didn't you?" Iris's answer was barely a whisper. "Because I'm your mother, I'm supposed to protect you." Later, in the ICU, the siblings took turns sitting beside Duke. Vincent held his father's hand, remembering how he'd once stood up for him when the world didn't believe in him. Nora whispered apologies for not noticing the signs sooner. Ruby drew her father's face in her sketchbook, tears smudging the lines. That night, Duke's heart stopped. The monitors screamed, doctors rushed in, and for nearly 4 minutes his heart flatlined. Then, against all odds, it returned. When dawn broke, he was alive, fragile but alive. While Duke recovered, Nora refused to let Finch walk away. With help from an attorney, the siblings uncovered a web of forged documents, falsified reports, and dozens of other elderly victims. Even Finch's assistant came forward, exposing him for targeting high-value, low-resistance tenants. The siblings confronted him face-to-face in his glass office, the skyline gleaming behind him like cold judgment. "You threw our parents into the street," Ruby said, her voice shaking. Finch sneered. "Business is business." Nora placed evidence on his desk. No, it's criminal. For the first time, Finch's smile faltered. When they left, Vincent turned to his sisters. He thinks he can fight this, he said. Let him, we have something stronger, truth. Within days, their story went public. A TV interview exposed everything. The city erupted with outrage. Calls poured in from other victims. The district attorney launched an investigation. Finch's empire began to crumble. Duke, still in the hospital, watched the report on TV, his eyes misty. We didn't just survive, he said. We stopped him. Weeks later, Duke was discharged. Ruby had found a modest apartment with a garden where Iris could plant her flowers. Nora used her connections to add her parents to her health insurance. Vincent brought his newborn son, Jackson, for Duke to hold, a moment that made everyone cry. But the Whitmores didn't stop there. They used their settlement not for comfort, but to establish the Whitmore Legal Defense Fund, free legal aid for elderly tenants facing eviction. The story went viral nationwide, inspiring others to stand up for vulnerable families. One evening, as the sun set through their new window, Duke looked around the room, his wife beside him, his children laughing, his grandson gurgling in Ruby's arms. When I thought everything was lost, he said softly, I forgot what really mattered. It wasn't the house, it was the people inside it. The room fell quiet, each of them understanding that home was never just walls and windows. It was love that refused to give up. As the camera fades to black, the narrator's voice closes with warmth. If this story moved you, share it. Because somewhere, someone's parents are fighting to keep their home, be their voice. Subscribe for more true stories that remind us family is forever.